Okay.
And away we go. Hello everybody, we are the Pinball Wizards, and today we will be presenting a short play to you. Starring Cheryl Bemis as the defendant, me, Paul Maxer as the judge, Lottie Dewey as our public prosecutor, and Haley Songchild as the defender. Our story begins with Miss Bemis, who is concerned about the users of archives. She often saw the archivist overestimating users' knowledge and structure procedure in the archive. Cheryl saw this knowledge as critical to user success and petitioned the archivist to take every opportunity to explain these rules and procedures. Frustrated at the lack of success, Cheryl looked to the traditional models of information search, such as the much revered Falmathu ISP and Bates berry picking models. After reviewing the sacred text and finding little that was useful to the archive, Cheryl had the gall to create her own new model. Based on the pinball machine, this model would explain the complexities of both the archive and the information search process. Cheryl's hope was that the pinball model could show how users move emotionally and physically through the archive with the assistance of the archivist. The world was stunned by her findings, and thus I present to you the curious case of the pinball model.
You're not going to believe what's coming.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court is now in session. Is the state ready to present their opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I'm Lottie Dewey, the prosecutor for this grave case before you today. This crime may shock you. I intend to prove that the accused, Mrs. Cheryl Bemis, has committed an egregious crime against librarians everywhere. Disregarding all that is considered hallowed in the field of archival librarians, she's created her own new ISP model for archivists. Your Honor, I would like to present at this time Exhibit A and Exhibit B. If you will look at Exhibit A, you will find a smaller version of this model, which I hold here, Exhibit B. The pinball model. As you can see, it's absurd. What, I ask you, is wrong with the ISP models, the grand tradition created by Marcia Bates, the berry picking model, and Carol Fulfow, the stages of that model? What's wrong with these models? They're revered, they're wonderful, they've been around for years. Absolutely nothing is wrong with these models. The state restaurant.
Thank you, Ms. Dewey. Is the defense prepared to make their opening statements?
I am, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
You heard the charges against my client, Cheryl Bemis. And what you will find through this presentation is hard evidence, not mere blustering.
Objection, Your Honor, I do not bluster.
Objection overruled. Sometimes she blusters.
You will find her not guilty of this frivolous accusation, and furthermore recognize that no crime has been committed. In fact, rather than disgracing these classic models, she has honored them. In her model, she has taken salient parts from each of the traditional models, plus others not displayed here. From these, she created an innovative, more viable archivist model, the pinball model. which archive librarians will celebrate as a flagship tool for the 21st century. The archive pinball model visualizes the components of a pinball machine as a representation of users' experiences and encounters within an archive. The ball symbolizes the user, who enters the machine, the archive, with an information need. They must then be directed by the flippers, the librarians and archivists, towards the round bumpers, which represent areas of potential archivist intervention, and away from the triangular bumpers, which represent confusion and frustration. The numerically labeled stars signify the different levels of uncertainty also to be avoided. The octagonal bumpers are a search aspect which also will affect user success and amount of time spent in the archive. The Google search area of the machine represents a self-service mechanism which may or may not be helpful depending on users' level of research experience. Now at this time, Your Honor, the defense would like to call its first witness.
You may proceed. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, so help me God out.
Please tell the court what you did between October 24th and November 18th, 2011.
I created an Archives ISP model synthesizing aspects from several earlier, more general models.
Did you intend to disrespect and cause chaos within the archival library field?
Certainly not. My intention was to improve archive library services to patrons by helping archivists better understand a patron's information-seeking process.
So, your innovation was done with users of archival library services in mind, as well as archivists themselves.
Yes.
Your Honor, I ask the court's indulgence as Ms. Venus further explains the pinball model.
Please proceed.
Everyone's search process is unique, and there are endless paths that a user can travel to arrive at information. I'd like to illustrate a few of them. If the jury will please refer to Exhibit A, you'll see that Curly is a novice user and a first-time visitor to the archive. The librarian flipper located near the top left of the model should have offered to help, but didn't. Confused and overwhelmed, bouncing around frustrated, Curly turns to leave. Luckily, another librarian, the bottom left flipper, realizes that Curly is struggling and intervenes. She welcomes him warmly and explains some of the rules, that he must wear gloves when handling materials and that he is not allowed to use pens. She also explains about finding aids and some other resources of the archive, and Curly takes some notes. After she determines he's looking for a specific primary source, she refers him to the archivist who helps him with his search and retrieves materials for him. He takes some additional notes, studies, and exits. Project complete. The next example is Larry. He's an intermediate user with confidence in his researching abilities. On his first attempt at information retrieval, Larry decides to bypass the librarian located near the entrance and instead search the computer using Wikipedia. He doesn't find any information relevant to his search and becomes increasingly annoyed. He doesn't feel comfortable asking for help, and no one offers assistance. He ends his search prematurely and leaves the archive without any additional information. His second attempt, however, is successful. This time, he is greeted by a librarian upon arrival, and she fills in the gaps in his knowledge regarding archival theory and procedures. She also offers to show Larry how to access a digital archive so that he can search for materials online. She retrieves his materials, and the rest of the search process proceeds smoothly. Initially, Larry adopts a self-service attitude, which is not conducive in an environment where the archivist must retrieve materials for the user. This necessary interaction between user and archivist is a prime opportunity for instruction and mediation. And as you can see in my last example, we have Mo. Mo is an experienced researcher, and he's logged many hours studying primary sources. After an initial greeting, the librarian quickly determines that he has prior knowledge of archives and how materials are stored and classified. Realizing that it would be superfluous to show him the ropes, she retrieves his materials for him, He takes some notes, studies, and leaves with some good information. An important point to consider here is that Mo was once a novice user, just like Curly.
Thank you, Ms. Bemis. No further questions, Your Honor. The defense rests.
Ms. Bemis, you may please step down. Is the prosecution prepared to give a closing statement?
I am, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
You've heard the testimony given by the defendant, and by that evidence that she told you under oath that she committed this egregious crime. She created this travesty. Therefore, you have no other recourse except to find her guilty as charged.
Now, Miss Dewey, I will have the bailiff take you out of this court. No more of that blustering. Is the defense prepared to make a closing statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, my client created a new model, specifically with archive information seekers in mind. But this is no crime. This is an advancement. In the name of justice, you must find my client innocent of these senseless charges. The defense rests, Your Honor.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, we will go into recess while the jury makes their verdict. By a show of hands, is the defendant guilty as charged? Excellent. We have a unanimous vote. Court may now resume. The jury has rendered a verdict of not guilty. Ms. Bemis, you are free to go. Court is now adjourned.